Hello, and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, we've been talking a lot about AI this season, haven't we? And we've been talking about all the good attributes of it. However, I want to talk about something you might not have on your radar quite yet. Specifically, let's talk about cybersecurity and how to be cybersecurity smart when it comes to AI threats. Hackers are out there using AI right now that could jeopardize or, create more risks for you or your company. So let's simplify that. We're talking today to Richard Hollis. He is the founder and chief executive of Risk Crew, a unique London-based consultancy specializing in cybersecurity risk management, ethical hacking, and user awareness training. He's a seasoned cybersecurity expert and an ardent privacy rights advocate. He possesses over 30 years of hands-on skills and experience in designing, implementing, and testing the security integrity of business information technology systems all over the world. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Richard Hollis. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I hope that today we empower people with information and not just scare the bejesus out of them. That is our goal.
Let me quick look up the word bejesus.
But I think this is incredibly important because, I think that anything new and whiz bang out there in the world means that you really have to think about the risks that are involved in bringing new technologies into your company, but also making sure that your company is super safe. Because if you're thinking about new technologies like AI, hey, guess what? Hackers have been thinking about it 3, 5, 10 years before you and have already gotten sophisticated enough to start using those tools to infiltrate your security, right?
No, exactly. I wasn't making fun, but scared the bejesus. Bejeebus is exactly what people are. We're all scared. We're all very frightened from the messages that we receive from cybersecurity. It seems like something very, very bad. It starts with the images. We look and we see it on, some guy in a hoodie. It's always a guy. It's always a hoodie. He's in the shadows, hunched over a keyboard, doing who knows what. But the message is clear. Be afraid. Be very afraid. And we're all afraid. We're all afraid. And then when we get hacked, we think, oh, that was this mysterious black art that these hackers practice. We don't know how to stop it. We don't know how to begin, but everybody feeds off the fear. The hackers feed off our fear, as well as the industry that sells us products to say, here's what you need to be secure. And we buy it because we're afraid. We don't know what it does. We're told it's some gadget, some widget to make us more secure. What does that mean? We don't know. But here, we need to buy it because we're afraid. It's like we buy things to secure our homes. Fear drives us as consumers in this industry, and it's bad. It's really bad. It skews our logic, our judgment about what's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I would be willing to bet, maybe this is a broad generalization, but I'm willing to bet at least 90% of any organization, tiny or mega huge global corporation, 90% probably have no clue what the cybersecurity team actually does. Besides, keep things safe, don't let anything break or be hacked or be down. And that's it, right? So I think that there's a piece of that, right?
Absolutely. It's a big piece. It's a big piece no matter what, everybody runs out to the market to buy something to secure their business, no matter if they're momandpop.com selling flowers on the internet or they're IBM. But everybody sees it as a technology problem. And so they want to find the answer in technology. And that's why I say, because our industry is fear driven and our vendors scare us to buy these products, we think the answer is in a product and we go out and buy it. But by and large, we put in a product and 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work. Or it doesn't work because we don't know how to configure it or monitor it or manage it and maintain it and keep it. It's like you buy an alarm system to protect your house and you don't know the computer code you have to put in to make sure it's always on when you leave the front door, when you close the door. So part of this is, we buy things we don't know how to operate, and we buy things out of fear, and we buy things that don't work. But either way, we try to buy things to secure our enterprises, and that's short-sighted. That's only seeing one very small part of the problem.
So I want to break this down. And you and I spoke offline, and you said, all hacking boils down to three objectives. What are they? And why do they want that access?
It's very simple. And I love the title I love this podcast for simplification, because if you understood every hack that you and I have ever seen and read about, if I'm a hacker and I want to break into your system, Mary, I've got three objectives. I want to change the configuration of the device. I don't care if that's your mobile phone, if that's your laptop, your tablet, or your smart TV at home. If I can change the configuration, that's one of my objectives. The second objective is to upload an application, upload a command to that device, be it your tablet or your laptop or your smart TV. And the third objective I have is to get physical access to it. Why? To upload an application or change the configuration. All hacking comes down to that. And we're all afraid. We all read this ransomware, this spyware, these Trojans, these malwares, these botnets. But all hacking, anybody trying to get into a system and compromise and take and remove data, comes down, all hackers have two objectives. They want to change the configuration that gives them command and control to ingress or egress data, or they want to upload a program. What's in that program? The ability to egress or ingress data. It's all the same. Everything comes down to that. And so if you understood, all hacking comes down to that. So you would understand how important it is that you don't click on, and download applications that you don't know who sent them to you, where they're coming from. And that's phishing, and that's everything we hear. But we all click crazy. We want to click on everything we see, and of course I can send you what looks like a PowerPoint program, but behind it is actually an application. And you say, well, I know Rich, he wouldn't send me anything back. And you click on what looks like a PowerPoint icon, and I've just uploaded some malware into your system. It's not complicated. It's us allowing other programs to compromise our systems. So if I'm a hacker, I've got three objectives. Change configuration, upload a program, or if I can't do either one, I want to get physical access to change configuration or upload a program. But I've got three ways to do that. I've got three what they call attack vectors. If I'm attacking your business, whether you're momandpop.co.com selling flowers or you're a bank, I've got three. I want to go in through your people, your process, or your technology. And we started the conversation we all think cybersecurity is a technology problem, and we want to buy a firewall or an antivirus or some sort of thing or gadget that we can launch on our systems, but we're neglecting the other 2/3 of the attack vectors. Because if a hacker can't get in through your firewall, they get in through your people or through your processes, about getting access to a backup or data. So it's this short-sightedness where we look around, we think it's a technology problem, we put all the money into technology, and we neglect our people, we neglect our process. And a hacker looks at our business and says, well, I wouldn't go through that firewall, but I could pick up the phone and call somebody and social engineer their password from them, and I get exactly what I want. I get the ability to change configuration or upload a program through a user's password. It's not complicated. It's very, very simple.
And I think that it preys on the vulnerabilities of people, is that people are working so fast right now, and they're trying to blast through the 2,000 unread emails in their inbox. So they're going click, 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 just to try to shuffle, move. And that's where I think that hackers with emails are getting a lot more sophisticated now. They look and feel like legit and real emails. That people that are going so fast, you really do have to slow down and pause. Look at the email address that it's coming from. Look at the, how is it written? You have a gut check of this doesn't feel right. Don't click on the link, right? And that comes back down to training your people to be smart and savvy enough to find them.
Exactly. I don't think of it as smart and savvy. I think of it as common sense. If you sent me a letter and I received a letter in the mail and I looked at the return address and I didn't know who it was from, I'd think twice about opening up that mail. Yeah. I don't know why, but I would. Or if it said IRS, I'd go, oh, maybe I don't want to open up that mail. But where a sender is sending something from used to be very simple for us to understand. stranger danger. Don't talk to people you don't know. And so, but we forget that in the cyber world. You're right. Suddenly, somebody has our email address, and we treat them as if they were our closest friends and family. And we open up videos, what look like video links, or download programs, or take a look at this funny meme. It's odd. Yes, it relaxes our common sense. It's this understanding problem we have with the virtual. We don't understand that by clicking by downloading an application because it says Microsoft on it doesn't mean it's Microsoft.
Right.
And if you look closely at the return address, it might say soft micro, and you think, oh, that's close enough. And some people do. So for me, it's a common sense issue. It's not being smart. There's, it's just practicing what you practice in your day-to-day life about verifying the unknown before you do something. Look both ways before you cross the street. Just little tiny things that should be muscle memory. We don't have that muscle memory when it comes to cybersecurity.
Do you know what's interesting is what I have heard earlier this year, we did a whole slew of interviews with talent acquisition experts, recruiters from major companies. And one of the latest things that they are hearing and seeing is there's scammers out there that are posing as the recruiters for major companies. And, a whole gamut of different kinds of hacks that they're trying. Ones that are like, oh, okay, they send you a text message and say, so-and-so major corporation's really interested in you, saw your resume on a job board, want to offer you a job on the spot. First red flag, right? Without interviewing, you're just going to get a job. That's interesting. And then you go down this path as a job seeker, and you're excited about the prospect of no longer having to search and hunt for a job. So I think there's an emotional element of like, oh, this is the text of my dreams, right? And then, they don't have a company email address. That's another red flag. Then they ask you for your social security number or your driver's license to begin onboarding, which in a normal company would be fine if you've gone through the regular steps. So anything that feels accelerated like this and feels almost too good to be true, you have to really pause and stop, because there have been, cases out there where people will give their private information thinking they're getting set up for a job. And guess what? It's a hacker.
It's social engineering. It's somebody preying on your naivete to compromise, who has an ulterior motive. Absolutely. And the art of social engineering, the art of manipulating a human being for data necessary to compromise a system that human has access to is, I could tell you stories for hours. And the more detailed the story is, the more we are to believe it. And so whether it's, I want that job, or I want, come on, it started in dating websites. People want to be liked. People want to be, meet the ultimate partner, whatever it is. What you have in your head really compels you and motivates you. And a good attacker, a good hacker understands that and manipulates those emotions to get what they want. And yes, absolutely. The recruitment scam has been around for a long time, and it's very, very effective. And it's used by very intelligent hackers who mimic hiring for a large bank. You know why? Because it's just the reason I told you. They've tried to hack into the bank's firewall and they can't. So what they're going to do is set up they take all those resources that they would have put into, all hours and hours of trying to hack it through that firewall, and they turn it to hacking the people. And they set up fake. I've literally seen they've rented offices. I live and work in London here. They've rented offices, and they'll put people through mock interviews. And so it's not as obvious as how you're describing. They'll give them a form. They'll have them sign a release. They'll have them, it's that, and you think, well, I'm signing papers. This must be pretty legal, and then walk away with their password and, like you said, their driver's license, their social security number, their bank details for payment, for their employee payment details, their pension plans, their medical insurance, everything. No, we believe what we want to believe, and this is us, our fault as humans. But that's the point: is hackers understand. Through people, through process, through technology, you can manipulate a person a lot easier than you can manipulate a firewall rule set.
And I think that this comes back to what you and I were talking about previously. I mean, in order to help your clients take cybersecurity seriously, you've got to put a plan in place, right? And you and I were talking offline. It's like you really have to help your clients see and make it personal. Like, what if your personal data was revealed? Tell me more.
Well, first of all, you have to set your expectations, whether it's you and I as people trying to protect our own personal data, our driver's license, our social security numbers, and think, okay, are we going to leave those on our laptops, on our mobile phones, and our tablets? All right, so we have this disconnect between data, real data that's sensitive and personal to us, and ones and zeros because it's on a tablet or a laptop or a mobile phone, right? And we have this disconnect between it's not really. Now, if you came up to me and grabbed my wallet and ran away, I'd run after you. But if you had access to my Amazon account and they just took everything out that says a lot more than my wallet does to you, and we don't have that physical reaction. All right. So first of all, you have to understand in terms of expectations of what's possible. So when I'm talking to someone, I say, you understand cybersecurity? Oxymoron. There's no such thing. Cybersecurity is an oxymoron. It's that simple. And so if you understand that, and you understand that if it's an oxymoron, then what is it? There's never been a secure computer. There never was. There never will be. There's never been an organization from the NSA to the CIA to anywhere in the world. Intelligence organizations can't protect their own computer systems. Everything has been hacked. Why is that? Because the truth is cybersecurity is an oxymoron. The nature of computing is ax, it's the handshake. Hello, I'm here. Connect with me. Whether that's your remote in your television or your home heating system and your mobile phone. Hello, I'm here. Connect with me. Two computer systems always reach out and want to connect. All right, so there's no such thing as, if you know no such thing as cybersecurity, you know then what is the definition of a cybersecurity? Risk management. To identify those threats to your data, minimize those threats to something you have an appetite for, and manage those threats going forward. That's it. It's identify, minimize, manage. That's the definition of cybersecurity, because there is no such thing as a secure computer. So if you got that, suddenly you look at your computer different. And you might think twice about what you put on your computer. What personal data? Should I have my banking details on something that that isn't capable of being secured? Now, that's a reasonable. So setting those expectations, defining what cybersecurity is for you as a person or for your organization. What does cybersecurity mean to this organization? We sell flowers on the internet. All right. So what is it we're trying to protect? Our flowers, the supply chain? Maybe, maybe not. If it's competitive, our pricing, possibly. Our client base, and their list of credit cards, because we take those credit cards. Yeah, I would think so. So if you start to identify the data that if you lost it would cause your harm business, that's cybersecurity 101. That's a risk assessment. What is it I'm trying to protect? Why am I trying to protect it? What's going to happen to me if I fail to protect it? That's the impact on my business. And that's the lesson we all learn after we've been hacked. You don't understand how valuable something is until somebody's taken it from you, and that's your data. So people have looked at data sets and say, well, there's nothing special about that data. It's people where they buy their hair conditioner. But if you had a database of right-handed, left-handed people who use conditioner in their hair or don't use conditioner in their hair, you'd be shocked to find out how much that goes for on the dark web, and how many companies that research that would who are about to release a new hair conditioner or whatever that is, and how much money that would mean to them to shorten that research cycle to buy that data off the web. And all data is intrinsically valuable. All data. It equals cash. You and I and your podcast has discussed this in so many times in so many ways. Data equals cash. All data. So we all are processing, storing, and transmitting data that has intrinsic value to someone. And the first question is it to you and your business? If I took this from your business, would you go out of business? Or what would be the impact? So that kind of mirror that self-reflection about defining your expectations about what cybersecurity is. It's risk management. All right. Then what do we have to manage the risk of? Protecting this specific data, and having that allows you focus on if we lost this data, our employee database or our hair conditioner database, whatever, intellectual property. it makes all the difference in the world, because by focusing, you are accepting the premise that cybersecurity oxymoron. So you're going to focus on what you can do and what you can protect. And I mean that on a personal level, of whether that's your social security number or whether that's your intellectual property if you're a business. And it makes all the difference in the world, that clarity, because because it's an oxymoron. You have to spend the money in your people, in your process, in your technology where it's going to matter. Because and that's what everybody struggles with. How much do we spend to secure our systems? And I go in there and say, cybersecurity is an oxymoron. And they say, what? And I said, so you can spend all the money in the world and they still wouldn't be secure. There's no such things as an absolute in this condition and a technology. So anyway, it's a frustrating thing for people to fail to just ask themselves 3 or 4 very simple questions. What am I trying to protect? Why am I trying to protect it? What's going to happen to me if we fail? And write those down. And then look at them and realize you've just written out a security plan for your company.
And I want to go deeper into that because on your website, you talk about a cyber incident response plan, and that there are really 6 stages that you need to consider when you're building that. And I think that is going deeper into what you just laid out for us, which is perfect. So I'm going to go and give a quick of the top of the 6. And if you can give us a little bit more meat on the bone for each of them. So the 6 stages that you say are preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. And by the way, if you guys are feverishly taking notes out there, all of this is on the show notes. So go to the simplifiers.com for this episode. You'll find it all written there. So let us go deeper. Tell us more about those 6 stages. Preparation first.
Okay, so let's just back up and say, so preparation is be prepared. It's my old Boy Scout. You be prepared, meaning be prepared for a hack. I just said cybersecurity is an oxymoron. And I'm not saying be afraid, be very afraid. I'm saying take a pragmatic approach and prepare yourself for a hack.
Yeah, it's answering those 3 questions that you just posed out. I think that's a very perfect first start.
Exactly, because if you thought, if we had a hack over here, over in this software as a service platform or this cloud platform or this AI technology, what kind of impact would it have? And you figured that all out. And then suddenly you're focusing on the area of the data that you process, store, and transmit, that if it were interrupted, if it were taken from you, if it were encrypted and you had a ransomware notice in your email box, you wig out and you're probably be in harm's way. So this is then prepare for the worst. It's like that, pack your go bag, get your go bag together. All right, so prepare for a plan. Do you have a plan? If you came into the office tomorrow or your phone rang, from your ISP at 3 a.m, do you have a plan? What's the first step you would take? Do you have a team of people who are up on that technology, the cloud platform, AI specialists, software as a service specialists? Do you have access to the talent, the resources that you're going to need? So you'd write out a plan. Step 1, if we've been hacked, we do this, and all the way through step 36, call a lawyer. Step 37, make a public statement. Step 38, to notify local authorities, police authorities, but have a plan. And all of this, the good news is, by the way, Mary, all of this is out there. It's all been done before. There's all these templates that you can use. This is not new thing, but prepare for a breach is what very few people do until after they've been breached, and then thought, oh, didn't see that coming. Didn't, and it's absolutely too late. So the identification would be, so once you prepare, you have a plan, then back. Can you identify a breach? If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound to you? Do you have the technology that would indicate to you, give you the evidence that data has been ingressed or egressed from your systems? That's like, a smoke alarm. Do you have the ability to detect that the data has been taken from you? And if you don't have that, so step 2 is have a plan. Step 3 is make sure you can know if you've actually experienced a breach. So if I break into your systems, you'd say something was wrong. So you came home, the analogy is you'd come home to your house and your alarm system would be beeping. Your door's open, okay, but the door's open and the alarm's not beeping. Maybe you think, well, maybe the wind blew it up. Maybe the dog opened it up by accident, So understand you need to verify the breach, and you should have the technology, the expertise capable to do that. So step one, write the plan. Step two, be able to identify a breach. Step three, be able to contain the breach. Right? If we have an intruder and he's in the living room, fine. Be able to close the two doors and keep him in the living room, and so he cannot move to another part of your systems. So, and that's critical. That's contain the problem before the problem spreads. He came in through the back door, but he's been walking through all the bedrooms, and he's found the safe, whatever, to extend the analogy. But you have to be able to contain a hacker once gets into a system and keep him there, because his first steps by getting in are to escalate his privileges. He wants to not just break into one part of the systems, but have command and control. So in a hacker's, list of things to do, once he gets in the house, that's not good enough. Now he has to get access to all the rooms. And you want to stop that from happening. Let him in. If he's in one room and you've identified that he's in that room, stop it. Make sure you spend some time and effort, keep him there, and then you contain the problem to that specific quadrant of your technology. And then, of course, the eradication is get rid of it. And that's usually done by computer forensics, finding out how it happened. Did it come in through a firewall? Did it come in through an uploaded application? Isolate the application, take it offline, delete it from spreading, reboot everything in to a factory setting, rebuild. It's get rid of the problem, which, by the way, I'm oversimplifying, is in and of itself a hard thing to do. And then the last step is, what have you learned from this? What have you learned from this? You relied on technology and that's critical. And a lot of people, it's like a fire alarm. We all run and we put out the fire, but then we don't understand, how did the fire start? There was nobody in the house. Nobody should have had that kind of access. And sure enough, you know what? You'll have another fire, because if you have a faulty system or there's something wrong and you haven't identified the cause of the breach, the original cause, it will happen again. So that eradication should be, until you find what actually caused this breach. That leads to the lessons learned, and you fix that, so that doesn't come back to haunt you next year, the year after that, the year after that. So it's a pretty simple. What I'm advocating is just a full follow through. To plan for the worst, to then be able to detect the breach. And very few companies, believe it or not, can actually do that. Well, we've got a plan. How do you know you can, if I break it? And they do things like penetration testing to simulate a hacker, to see if but the whole point of that is, does it set off bells and whistles that I can detect somebody getting unauthorized access to my systems? But if you can't do that, then you don't stand a chance. I mean, what's the point? Why buy a burglar alarm if it never works, and you keep coming on and well, I've got a plan. I got a burglar alarm. You got to turn it on. You got to test it to make sure it actually works. And when people come in through a window, it picks that up versus coming through a back door, or uses your backup key. But then that, contain it is that's very technical. Eradicate it, very technical. But then sit back when it's all done. Everybody's, the fire in everybody's hair has gone out, and figure out, okay, what do we learn from that? We learned we're not investing enough in X, or we learned that we've overestimated what our technology can do, or whatever it is. And, but it's all about root cause, to make sure that you've eradicated the root cause so it never, ever happens again. But for me, that's a natural step-by-step, intellectual process that you should apply. And that's just so you're prepared. That's so you're prepared. And that's just based on a lot of common sense, but it's also, people who aren't prepared, they'll end up doing those 6 steps after the fact, whether they like it or not.
You know what I think, and I love that framework, because it really does break it down. And as you say, it is common sense. But I imagine there are a lot of fast-growing companies out there that were either a startup that just, hockey stick boomed to the sky, or even mid-sized businesses that kept chugging along and growing, that as they started to integrate more tools into their workflow and more softwares into what their company does and how they, get the work done, I can imagine there are quite a few companies that, as that growth has happened, they have not hired those skilled cybersecurity specialists in-house. And so they really need to lean on and be aware that they need to reach out and find those specialists that will help guide them through the process. Because a large matrix company, a global corporation, is going to have an IT team and it's going to have cybersecurity, but those mid-sized companies may or may not have a person in-house that knows how to do this stuff. What would you say to them to keep their business IT systems airtight against hackers?
Okay, I'd say to them, airtight, not so much, right? Identify, minimize, and manage, I would say. So I'd set their expectations about what they're doing. But what I would emphasize, Mary, is that this is I think every business, no matter how, I can't justify, the business is very fast growing. We went from X to Y this year alone, and we're tripling our profit. Okay, like I said, data equals cash. If you are processing very expensive data and making out money, no matter, and you're growing your business on it, you have a, I would suggest, a moral responsibility to your clients, to your partners, to your customers, to your supply chain. All right, to protect the data that's making you that money. How can you do that? How can you expect to sustain the business when the very, the very data that you're processing, storing, and transmitting, that's generating all this cash, that's building this business, isn't being looked after? It's like, we don't have time for fire life safety because we're hiring too many people. No, I'm sorry, you don't. Until we start understanding that this is a responsibility, we have a moral responsibility to protect this data. This is not ones and zeros. This is data about people's lives. It's data about your husband, my wife, my grandmother, my kids, my blood type, where I went to school. This is data about people's lives. I don't buy into this that the company's moving too fast. The company's making too much money and moving too fast to be able to protect the data that's making them this money. They're looking at the wrong end of the telescope, is what I'm saying. So there's no excuse, and I feel that this connection to the data it allows us to disregard it as a responsibility to protect that information.
Yeah, it makes me think about it makes me think about, other nuanced places that people may or may not be thinking about. Obviously, your company trade secrets, how you do the secret sauce of how you create your products and services. That's obvious. You want to keep that safe if there's intellectual property there. But I also, and we talked already about customers' data. Of course, yes, customers' data needs to be kept safe and private. Credit cards, data information about how they shop, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also another piece, the employees' data. So I think about it from an HR lens. So let's say you're doing talent development programs, or you have software, AI software that tracks your entire enterprise's, performance reviews and skills and succession plans and very sensitive data about your employees. That also is incredibly rich information that you don't want leaked out to hackers as well. So I almost implore HR folks that are out there listening to this podcast, you should be having those conversations with your IT and cybersecurity teams now. Put this podcast on, have a conversation about it, and say, well, what are our plans when we integrate this new talent acquisition software or this new talent development, leadership development program? What do we do to keep our people's information and data safe?
And it starts at the top. I walk into a board of directors. The first question I ask is, who has data in the systems that to protect? Not a hand goes up. Anybody got a credit card in there? Anybody got pictures of their family on these systems? Anybody got medical records, medical data? Let me ask, anybody have their DNA on these systems that you're going to talk about, doing security for? Nobody. And I think, well, then you don't have any skin in the game, do you? And you're right, Mary. You're absolutely right. What about the employees of that company? This is their personal data. This is their bank accounts. This is their payroll and their social security numbers and identity information that has a lot of value. But a company doesn't see and take on that moral responsibility that they have to protect that data to the greatest extent possible. But I could see it. It starts at the top. If a board doesn't have personal data into their in their systems that they're trying to protect, they don't have anything invested. They have no skin in the game, as I say it.
So I'm curious then, how are you seeing hackers use AI these days when it comes to breaching systems? What's the latest and greatest?
All hacking is 3 objectives: change configuration, upload a program, or get physical. So let's leave the physical behind and say, if there's an AI, first of all, there's 2 sides to this. AI is you're using an AI solution in your business to do better business. Okay, so whether that's open source or ChatGPT, or you've got a private source or what, all of that is built on a database. All right, so the cybersecurity question should be about the integrity of that database. All right, so these 2 questions about, can a hacker change the configuration of that database? Mm-hmm. Can they upload a program to that database? That's where it comes into play. And so it's 9 times out of 10, the bulk of us who just want to log on to ChatGPT and do something fun, it doesn't apply, because you're counting on ChatGPT to ensure that the configuration nothing's been uploaded or downloaded, right? All right, so that's our problem. Now, and we absolutely don't. We should be, and you look at out here, the EU has the new AI Act, which is phenomenal and puts the onus on people who are generating these programs and making sure that the integrity of this of the data that makes up these programs are well protected, because that's where they're compromised. If I can get into and compromise on a code level ChatGPT, and I'm a hacker, that's the mother load. That's the mother load. But is Microsoft, is Amazon, are these big companies who are investing in these solutions, these AI solutions, protecting them in their development? I would suggest that as fast as we're churning them out, we are probably overlooking that, because it's always been that way. Security, technology first, security second. We all fly to the internet. We thought, we should have had some security. I'll tell you what, let's use a firewall. All right, then it's Wi-Fi, and then it's not Wi-Fi, it's cloud. It's and cloud's insecure, and so it's technology first, security second. Security is always a bolt-on to any technology. So here we are with AI. And the big question we should be asking our suppliers of our solution is, has this been protected in its development phase? And yes, great. Okay, could you sign this waiver here that if your application is used to compromise my business, that you have some liability in the, and that's the question, of course, we're still not asking as consumers. All right, but that the second point of this is how useful AI is to a hacker who can design something to compromise, as we said, technology, people, or process. And where you're seeing it just explode is just what we talked about earlier, social engineering, the use of AI to dupe someone into giving them their personal details. So the phishing emails have got sophisticated to the 10th power, and there's so much more you can take in to understand an end user's algorithm, what they do or don't do on X or TikTok or LinkedIn, and they can see all of this and then design an attack that is tailor-made to that person, that that the end user would think that must be my mother, and to include duplicating your mother's voice to saying, I'm stuck on the highway, I need you to transfer X number to my account. I mean, it's that good. So it is really scary as a useful tool to a hacker. But remember, if you remember what a hacker is trying to do, he's got this tool to manipulate you, to social engineer you, to compromise you into doing something you wouldn't technically do. So all the same old rules apply, but now we got a new, we got a technology that can be used. It's like being on steroids for a hacker, because the tool can be very sophisticated very fast, and it doesn't take a lot to use it.
At the start of 2024, there was that news article about a Chinese company where, they were on a video call. One party said, "Oh, please move this amount of money from here to there. And the guy on the call was seemingly just didn't realize that it was actually a fake video call. It was not, it was the hacker impersonating. And, we had Sarah Reitzma on the podcast a few months ago. She is an AI expert in the fields of call center operations.
I listened to it. It was very good.
Yes. And she was talking about, just really being very cautious about utilizing voice passwords anymore because, in a short amount of time, AI can replicate a person's voice within 10 or 15 seconds of audio data. So, I think that there are things out there that are very scary for a lot of people. If you can't trust the video and you're having a call, is this a real person on the other side? If you can't trust the audio and knowing a person's voice, what would you say to those people? Because then it's like, well, I'm just not going to field any phone calls anymore, or put more diligence in place before moving large sums of money, right?
Well, one of the first things that have always worked is I'll call you right back. Is that authentication? Somebody calls you on Teams and it looks like me and it sounds like my voice, and you just talk to me. Say, Rich, I'll call you right back. And call me back because I've got to program that conversation that I have with you, and so it's that kind of just that kind of common sense approach to say, and that's at this point in time, that's probably one of the most effective measures is to say if there's any doubt at all. We just worked for a client who was a charity, and they're a not-for-profit charity for children around the world to feed children, and the MD is a very generous, big-hearted woman who communicates directly with all the employees. And they had somebody got in, AI generated her actual person on a Teams call going out and asking for donors to send in more money, but to a specific bank account. And it was immediately that about 5 people noticed it because when she signs off, her signature is "bless you." She just has this personal and "bless you for doing it." And of course, the AI didn't pick that up. And so people called and said, she didn't say "bless you." And it looked just like her. And I saw it afterwards and I met the woman, and I made me smile to say, "Your signature sign off?" She said, "This is a thing I say. It's like people say, keep in touch, goodbye. I just say "bless you." And it was her personal thing. And because she didn't use that on the call, people picked up and triggered the fraud, and it was stopped. And it was that kind of, the beauty of people know her so well, her personality so well, and said she would never send out an email or a text without saying, without her signature sign off. But it is tough, Mary. It is very, very tough. It's, one thing to look at fakes of Tom Cruise and say, I know if Tom Cruise is real or not. It's another thing to get a call that sounds like a family member saying I'm in trouble. And, I'm overseas, and it could be your son or daughter who's backpacking somewhere and needs money. And no, AI can do that. And by looking at the algorithms of what they're posting on social media, hey, they're in Bolivia, they're in this country, the stories are incredibly believable. So no, it's getting harder and harder. And our spidey sense has to be more and more sensitive to allow us to say, hey, wait, just let me verify this. Because this is a digital transaction. It's not like somebody coming up to you on the street, and you can see, feel, touch, hear, and you got that tactile. All you've got is a Teams call, and it's anyway very effective, and that's where that's where the scary stuff is now happening. By and large, in social engineering, us who are not practicing this common sense, I'm advocating.
Yeah. Now, if you're curious about the work that Richard and his team does around the world, they work with global clients. Their company is called Risk Crew, based in London, and the website is riskcrew.com. Again, all links and all the resources we talked about in today's episode, you can find over the show notes at thesimplifiers.com. So, Richard, as we wrap up, there's a few questions that I like to ask you that I ask everyone that comes on the podcast, and here we go. First one is, tell me what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
This is going to date me, but there's a book I read every 2 years. I can't do without it. It's like a course correction for me, and that's Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Persing. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book about a guy who used to be a philosophy professor who thinks he might be having a nervous breakdown, and takes his 8-year-old son because he's worried it could be hereditary. And they go on a motorcycle trip, and he analyzes his life. But it's really about the application of quality, of how do you define quality, and can you use an analytical method to define quality? And it's a fascinating book for me because Robert Persing used to write computer manuals for Honeywell back in the 70s, and he lived above a shoe store, and he was a philosophy, his aspiration was to teach philosophy. And it's kind of the convergence of computer manuals to a philosophy text on quality, and it's a beautiful book. And I read it every 2 years to get plugged in, I guess you'd say.
I love it. I have not heard of this book, so we'll link this up in the show notes for people if you guys want to check that out. So tell me, who is somebody in your network, somebody you know personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast. Who would that be?
Well, in my industry, it would have to be someone called Bruce Schneier. Bruce Schneier, Schneier, Bruce Schneier, and it's bruceschneier.com. And Bruce has been around for a long time. I kind of consider him my George Carlin of cybersecurity. He's a very pragmatic, common sense focused, and he's been a long time in the industry. And I think he sees things for what they are, and advocates a simple approach, and not overcomplicating. He can see the forest for the trees.
Excellent.
Well, see the trees for the forest, I think I should say. Anyway, Bruce Schneier, I would heartily recommend anybody interested in cybersecurity look at Bruce Schneier, Schneier.com.
Awesome. We'll link him up in the show notes as well. I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, wow. Good question. I don't think about that enough. But immediately comes to mind my family. I run my own business, and that's a lifestyle. It's not a 9-to-5 gig. And my wife has made a lot of concessions to my devotion to my trade, what I do. She's her sense of humor. She's given me the space I need to do what I love to do and do it well. And I'm very grateful from the family support that I have. That's enabled me to start and manage a business for 20 years, and given me that wiggle room of, when I miss a birthday or when it's just amazing how people around you who know you and love you, how much support they've given you that you've overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're curious about Richard and you want to get plugged in, we'll link him up also in the show notes to his LinkedIn, so you can connect with him there as well. Or even if you wanted to ask him a little bit more about cybersecurity and keeping your own company safe, I'm sure he'd be able to point you in the right direction there. My last question for you today is this, Richard, and again, thank you so much for your time. Someone somewhere is listening to you and I right now, and they are in hot water. They have allowed a data breach of some sort, maybe small, maybe not so small, at their company, and they are going, man, I blew it this time. What's one thing you could whisper in their ear just to encourage them in this moment?
Make it personal. Make it personal. If you're responding to a breach on behalf of your company, and you responded it to as if it were your personal data, it makes all the difference in the world. Make it personal. And I think that's what I'd whisper to you if you're struggling with any project, trying to decide the right thing to do in cybersecurity. Act as if it were your own data, and you'd be acting in good faith.
Richard, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Mary.